Hi and welcome to the 4LODGE installation video. Just want to show you how to install the 4LODGE part, the latest greatest that we've developed from 4POS. So let's assume that you've now downloaded the file. I've just put it into a folder called 4POS support, but effectively you can run it straight from the downloads or wherever you've got it. Okay, so it basically tells us to not change the folder there from CD4Lodge, and definitely suggest that you leave it as such, otherwise it might give you all sorts of errors. The process does quite a lot of work in the background. It installs the crystal reports, it installs .NET, it installs the SQL Server files and so on. So again, leave the process as is. Okay, so system basically comes up and says, welcome to 4LODGE. All you need to do is click on next, and then select whether it's your main computer, in other words the first or server computer that will be using the 4LODGE, effectively where the database will be stored. I'm selecting that it's on my server, and I'm clicking next, and basically from there we're going to sit back and relax. 4POS will now detect and uninstall any old 4LODGE versions that you might have on your computer, start creating the database, and so forth. Alright, so once the installation is complete, it will open up the 4LODGE manual for you, and you'll see that in the background the 4LODGE setup wizard is complete. So I'm just going to click on close on there. I'm going to leave the manual open for now, so we can go through the process. That also in the manual explains all the steps like I've just done on the video. On your computer, it's also wise to go and check your regional settings. You do that in the control panel and just make sure that your regional settings has been set up correctly. Alright, the installation plan itself, as you can see, we try to guide customers through the process which effectively, as we say, we were to do the installation. That's exactly the steps that we would follow. The 4LODGE program, it's going to create an ODBC connection for the database, and then once that is done, and when you reopen the program, it will go through the normal steps. First of all, you'll prompt you for the voucher number, a company name, or the lodge name for that matter, etc., etc. For now, I'm just going to skip that part and just go register later. Username and password by default is just default and password, as you can see on the screen, and you can click OK. So now I've got my 4LODGE system up and running. It's all nice and clean. No rates, no rooms, no nothing created on the system. Let's go back to our manual, and in the manual we've got an installation plan. We honestly believe that if you follow these steps, it'll be quite simple for you to do, and that's what I'll try to explain on this video as well. Alright, the system also say from point number 2, please ensure that you got an A4 printer configured as the default printer. 4POS obviously, or sorry, 4LODGE uses the A4 printer or the default printer to print all reports. In other words, to set up your report page according to the default printer, and the default printer is then better to have it. So you can then open up 4LODGE and register it. If you've already purchased a 4LODGE voucher, you can enter your company details, which is part of we go through. And then we say start doing your accommodation rates by number 1, amend the account allocations. Okay, so let's go into 4LODGE and let's do that part of it. So we go to lodge security, we go to room maintenance, and we do our account allocations. Now what we want to do here is simply just create the allocations. In other words, how do you want to allocate any rates that you might have? So first of all, I'm just going to create a rate called accommodation, and simply I'm going to say it's a debit account. There's no cost of it and so on. In other words, I'm just creating an open allocation. The idea with the allocations is that you could then later on get into detail and break your rates down that was charged to a room for maybe bed and breakfasts and so on, so you can get your rate for the breakfast separate. And it might be because you want to see whether the restaurant, or allocate that monies to the restaurant part of your business to see whether they are also being profitable or not. So in other words, for now we're just going to keep it simple. We're going to just say accommodation. So I have one allocation at the moment just called accommodation. Okay, back to the manual. Let's see what our next step is. The next item that we want to do is create our room rates, our room types. Let's go back again, room maintenance, and we're going to do our room types, and I'm going to add a room type, and I'm going to say, argument's sake, SNG for singles, and call it a single room. Okay, and I'm not going to worry about the accommodation rates and so on for now. Just going to skip out of there, and I'm going to say I also have double rooms. Okay, and we'll add one more, and we'll call it, argument's sake, penthouse. Sorry, let's just call it PN for penthouse, abbreviation over there for the code, and penthouse over there. Okay, so those are my three main types, and that's quite happy with that for now. You can also go and do things like parking areas, and you can do reservations on parking areas as well if you've got limited amount of parking areas, and also to be able to determine whether there is any parking available for your guests at any time. Alright, so let's go back to the manual. In the manual, we want to say we want to go and do our accommodation rates. Okay, so let's go and do that now. Exit out of there, lodge setup, room maintenance, accommodation rates, and now I want to add some rates, and I want to say I want to have a single room rates, argument's sake. It applies to single rooms from when to when? From the 1st of October, and let's say this applies to, argument's sake, the 31st of January, just for sake of an argument. It's a taxable rate. I want to set it as the default rate, and then it applies also to Sunday, Monday, etc., down the right hand side here. It's a daily charge, and now I want to go and say what my rate will be. So I click on the little block with the two dots in there, and I'm going to say I want to add accommodation in there, and I want to charge, let's call it $7.50 per person. All right, and exit out of there. All right, and then exit again. And now, depending on what your parameters are, the part that I've actually skipped now, I'll go back to that now, is that you can go and say it must apply the single adult rate to all of the rates. In other words, it doesn't matter whether there's up to 4 people in the room plus extra adults after that, etc. That is the rate that you'll charge per person in the room. Okay, you can get very complicated and detailed in later, but for now, let's just do it that way. All right. So let's add another one quickly, and we'll say we want to do a double rate. Okay, for a double room, in other words. Let's call it then double room rate. Okay, and it applies to a double room. And we'll also say this goes up to the end of January for now. Okay, yes, it's single. Yes, it's the default. And I'm going to make that for a double room. I'm going to charge 1,350 in my case rands, but it could be dollars, it could be any other currency. 4LODGE, as with 4POS, handles any accommodation or any currency that you might have. Okay, apply the single rate to all, and I go exit. So there I've done my single and my double. I'm going to do one more for my penthouse. Okay, penthouse rate, and a penthouse might, for argument's sake, be a suite. So there will be a couple of 2 rooms in there, and there will also be a possibility of a lounge area, etc. Alright, so the same applies, taxable, default rate, and I'm going to just say my accommodation in there, and now suddenly my rate has gone up to maybe 3,000. Okay. Alright, and that is all my rates in there. Again, I'm going to say apply single to all. In this case, you might say that, okay, fine, hang on, this is for the room, it's not per person, and you will then make your change accordingly. For now, let's just handle it as that. And I've effectively set up all my rates. Back to my installation plan again, and I go and say, okay, well, now we want to do some rooms. Okay, so let's go back again, lodge setup, room maintenance, and as you can see, the last item on the list is my rooms. Okay, and I'm going to say I've got room number 101. It's a single room, maximum adults, argument's sake, 2 people in there. Set up a color for it and say, well, let's call it yellow for now. And this is how the grid will be determined. It's a guest room, and we're not linking it to anything else. There's nothing else funny on there. It's also not linked to 4POS for now. And I'm going to add another one. Let's say, sorry, room 102. It's also a single room, also 2 people maximum, and I'm going to make that one also yellow. And that's it. So I've got my room 102 in there. Let's do a double room to a 1 argument's sake. Let's make that orange or something. Alright, and in my double room I'm going to cater for 2, let's call it 3 people max. Okay, and add another double room to a 2. And again, your rooms might be a little bit more complicated, or you might even have a name in there, and etc. etc. You can do any and all functionality that you need on that part. Okay. Alright. Oh, hang on there. I see I made a mistake now. See, 201, I made a single room as well. So let's just go and fix that quickly, because obviously my rates and so on will also be affected if I make a boo-boo. So the same with anything, you know. Let's just go and double check all our different things. Let's call pen 1. Let's make it uppercase. It looks a little bit prettier on the room. And in my penthouse I might have, for argument's sake, 4 people in there. And my penthouse is obviously a blue room, because there's only presidents allowed, or whatever the case may be. Alright, and that's it for now. That's good enough. And I'm going to say, okay, show me my grid now. Okay, and as you can see, my grid comes up quite nicely then with my room numbers and so on in. On the second, I say I want to do a reservation. System will come up and say, oops, you can't do a new reservation now. It's only for registered versions. And the reason for that on this specific computer is that I've already been using it for quite some time, and that's what it's going to bomb me out on. Open the 4LODGE again, and then what I'm going to have is type in my voucher number, which I grabbed off a list quickly. This number is a unique number. Once it's used, as you can see on the video here, it will not be available to anybody else. So we can clearly just put that on the screen without having to worry about it. Alright, so let's just call it, for want of a better word, let's just call it Peninsula Hotel. And we'll say it's, I'm just going to put it through to my own email address, then it's a lot simpler. And the address is number 121 Beach Road or Strand Street or whatever it's called in Cape Town. Okay, and the contact number is whatever the contact number might be. Alright, then I'm going to go next. Say, are you sure? Yes, thank you very much. And it's been registered now. Now I'll be able to do my reservations. So let's just quickly jump back in there. Open up the 4POS program again. Again, I haven't done passwords yet. So as you can see, my company name has now changed to the correct lodge name. And if I go into lodge parameters, might as well go and fix up a couple of other things. I'm just going to copy and paste the physical address for now. Obviously you'll have it differently. Fax number I don't have. Email address is fine. VAT number, whatever that might be. And you can go and set your tax percentage to whatever it might be, 15%, 14%, 17%, depending on what you have. Number of days that you expect for a deposit, what your default banking details is, etc., etc. You can fill all of that details in. This is what shows up on the some of the reservation part. The night order time is important. This is the time where the system will calculate the charges to the rooms. The way that 4LODGE handles the reservations is when you make a booking and somebody is staying in the room, it only gets charged at night time, in other words at 8 o'clock or just after 8 at night. And the reason for that is somebody might leave early, and you can set up a room to say charge for the full period, as you can see over there. You can also say you will charge extra for later arrivals and so on. You can specify whether there's a tourism levy, and you can have your tourism levy percentages into the system as well. Okay, so now that we've registered it, we've set up some of our items, let's go back and go and do a reservation. I'm just going to click in there and say I'm doing a reservation. From the second, as you can see, the person will be checking out on, argument's sake, Friday during the day, which means that Thursday night he will still stay. So it will calculate the number of dates for you. The guest IDs, you can go and say it's a new customer. Argument's sake, I'm saying J for first name, initial, sorry, and this will be Jane Doe. Argument's sake, Jane Doe is 32 years old. She is female, nationality, she's from Germany for that matter, and the address is 1212 Apple Street, etc., etc. Okay, and the telephone number would be 555-1243, the same way that Hollywood does it. It's a lot simpler, and that will be my email at gmail.com or whatever it might be. This is obviously the customer's email address because you want to be able to send them a confirmation as well. If they do have a company number, if they have a tax number, all the rest of the details gets filled in. Okay, well in this case it's compulsory, so let's put in, just say no company. Okay, it's obviously something you can go and edit in the system. I'll go back and in the advanced video go and get into the nitty-gritties of it. There's only one person staying in the room and they're not paying a deposit yet. They'll just made a booking for us. So now at this point in time I can go and say print the reservation and it'll show me all the details in there. There's no notes on the system and it will send a report similar to this to the customer. Say, dear Jane Doe, we require a 50% deposit paid into the bank details, all the rest of it. It will then take the value of the booking divided with the 50% and calculate that as 1125. It might seem on the video here that this is a little bit off-centered. You're welcome just to do a little bit of a browse on it, and if as soon as you see that you make it a little bit bigger. Okay. Okay, so you could also print a summary for your booking. In other words, it will show you there basically what it will be charged to. So on this day there's 750, then another 750 on the third, and on the fourth 750. That gives us a total of 2250. Okay. There's a couple of other things that you can do. Okay, so for now let's just finish the reservation. As you can see on the screen, it's now reserved the room. Your customer might have already confirmed that they'll definitely be arriving, or they've sent you a deposit or a confirmation email. However you will manage that, and we'll click on the room and we'll say this room has been confirmed. Alright, and let's do another walk-in possibly. So today is the first, so I'm clicking on walk-in. Same procedure. Person will be checked out tomorrow. In other words, it's a one-day stay, and I'm going to say it's a new person. And this is another Doe, of course, and we'll say this is John Doe, or whatever, doesn't really matter. Okay, so again the age will be, argument's sake, 28, sex is male, nationality they are from South Africa, and the address is 1214 Strand, and telephone number would be whatever, cell number, email, fax number that they don't have, email address at yahoo.com. And again, let's just type in here no business and no VAT numbers. Okay, so that's it, and I want to check this person in at the same time. I mean, I could obviously go and print out the sheets and so forth, or let's just do that for sake of an argument, and we can check this person in. Okay, now, and this is the way that we'll be basically doing our booking. So we can also go and say, okay, fine, hang on, I want to do a couple of bookings for December now. So let's go to December, and I'll say from the 1st till the 23rd, argument's sake, or say, let's say from the 31st, and I'll say go, and it shows me my December bookings. Okay, so there's nothing for December right now. I want to say somebody's going to be checking in on the 17th, which is typically a good part of it. My checkout date, they'll be staying for a week or so. Let's say they leave on Christmas Day, And the guest ID, I'm going to say it's an existing person, and it's the Jane Doe this side. And there's 2 of them at the moment, or there might be 4 of them. Okay, and when we look at our print summary there, we'll see that the room is charged at 3,000 for those 8 days, then 24,000 for the period. Okay, and we're going to say reserve. Again, at this point in time, they might have sent you a payment, and you can go back and you can say, I want to confirm the booking. Okay, and the booking has been confirmed, and the grid goes back to the grid goes back to today. Let's just go back to December again. I want to be able to go and do enter their deposit that they've paid for me as well. Alright, so I can go and enter deposit. They've send me a credit card, or given me credit card details for that matter, and they've sent us a confirmation of 12,000 rand or rupees or dollar for that matter. If you've done the deposit on the system, as you saw a brief second ago, then obviously if you then go click on the room and you say show the reservation info, let me do that again, and I say reservation info, I can see that that room is booked by Jane Doe. That's a telephone number, email address, all the rest of it. The deposit that was made is 12,000 rand, the room rate is 750, and everything is back in balance. Now bear in mind that this monies, the 12,000 rand deposit, although it's made on a booking that is coming in December, that will be part of my cash up for today. So it's not something that we will say, well, hang on, that will only come into play in December, because I've already received it. It's already gone into the bank. So 4LODGE also manages the financial implication of your business at any given time. So in a nutshell, that's how easy it is to get your 4LODGE system up and running. As you can see, we were able to set up the room rates, we were set up the rooms itself, the allocation accounts or allocation types that we used on the system and so on. And we will carry on with more videos to explain more detail about the system, how your night audits and so on will work. So you can just keep an eye on more videos coming soon. Thanks for your time. Enjoy.